guys. Welcome to Mystery Diagnosis.
I'm outside, I'm raking leaves for quite a period of time. It's a very cold, blustery day, and I felt my face beginning to feel strange, to tingle. My ears were beginning to ache a little bit, almost like a toothache in my earlobes. So I took off my gloves and I went inside and took a look in the mirror and sort of did a double take. My heart skipped a little beat because my entire face was a purple-black color.
For a few minutes, Bruce's normal skin tone returns.
It's cold agglutinin disease.
And he said, this is something we call cold agglutinin disease.
Cold agglutinin disease, or CAD, is an autoimmune disease where antibodies attack healthy red blood cells at cold temperatures. As a result, the blood cells begin to clump, slowing down the circulation of blood to the extremities, such as the ears, nose, and cheeks. It can be caused by a variety of conditions, including infections and some cancers. Over time, Bruce learns to live with his condition. For the next 3 winters, he stays inside as much as he can and bundles up every time he goes outdoors. But it isn't long before Bruce finds himself needing to layer as many as 3 sweaters under a thick winter coat. The constant dressing and undressing begins to frustrate him.
I don't blame him.
Well, staying warm is a nice suggestion, but you have to travel from one school to the other and walk outside. It's difficult to stay warm.
Bruce returns to his doctor, whose only advice is to vacation in warmer climates. Bruce is so desperate, he buys a condo in Florida and flies from New Jersey to the Sunshine State almost every weekend. Bruce stops going to the dermatologist and returns to his hematologist, who assures him that the cold agglutinin disease is causing the pain and discoloration. He suggests that Bruce begin an exercise regimen in the hopes of improving his circulation.
I had been encouraging to see other doctors, but he just wouldn't do it.
She kept saying, I think you should get a second opinion. I really think you should see another doctor.
As excruciating as the pain is, Bruce begins walking 7 days a week.
He'd walk around the school, and people would say to me, Jean, why is he walking like that? It would pain people to watch him, to look at him.
But despite his best efforts, Bruce finds himself spending more and more time in his recliner.
I felt like a prisoner in my home.
He looked like an old man, and I think he just realized his mortality, and he's going to come to an end.
Helped me get away from the cold. School ended at 4 o'clock on Friday. I'd be on a 7 o'clock flight.
At first, Florida seems to do the trick for Bruce. He feels better and is less achy, but the relief does not last for long.
Everything in Florida is air conditioned. So I would walk in a store, and it would be 90 degrees outside and sunny and warm, and my ears would start to turn purple, and my cheeks and the tip of my nose.
It got quite scary after a while. Nothing was working, I should say,
Bruce soon realizes that his condition is getting worse, rapidly.
And I'm realizing that this is happening at a warmer and warmer temperature. What happens when I start turning blue at room temperature? Found only dead tissue.
The dermatologist is baffled. He has no idea what could be causing the discoloration and pain. He concludes that Bruce's circulation problem must have caused some of the skin on his feet to die and turn dark purple. His solution? Scrape off the dead skin with a file.
And here's this fellow trying to help him out and scraping his toes, thinking, he's never heard of anything like this either, but doing whatever he could to help him.
And for a period of 8 or 9 weeks, I went on a weekly basis and had the dead tissue carved off the top knuckles of my toes, which was very painful.
Little did he know that it was making it worse. It wasn't helping him at all.
In fact, Bruce's foot pain becomes so severe that he begins to have trouble walking.
I never realized how excruciating foot pain can be.
Oh yeah, it can be
I
painful.
literally felt at times that I could have picked.
Bruce seems to be spiraling downward with no end in sight. But then, one day, a colleague makes a suggestion that would change his life forever.
He saw me getting worse, and one day he said, Bruce, I have a friend and acquaintance who's a doctor. I took the liberty of telling him about your case. And he seemed very interested, very intrigued.
Bruce gets an appointment that week. And
he had a very ruddy complexion, and over his nose and over his malar regions of his cheeks, there were little tiny blood vessels that had hemorrhaged. And I noticed it over his fingers. Several of his fingers were bright blue. When I touched them, they were cold. When I looked at his feet, it was even worse.
He then turns his attention to Bruce's lymph nodes. During the exam, Nissenblatt notices something else out of the ordinary.
When he rested in a supine position, meaning flat on his back, his upper abdomen was markedly protuberant or distended. I would
Lymphoma?
estimate that the area of distension was caused by a markedly enlarged spleen.
The spleen is an abdominal organ that filters blood, helping to keep the body free of infection. An enlarged spleen could be the result of an infection, like mononucleosis, or even certain cancers of the blood, such as leukemia or lymphoma.
And he said, your spleen is very enlarged. It's probably 10 times the size it should be.
This was an enormous spleen, so he was at risk for having splenic rupture.
Suddenly, Bruce's annoying but somewhat manageable circulation problem is then that he realizes he may have found the most important clue yet.
By looking at the CAT scan and seeing a very, very unique and unusual calcified structure, I told him that I think I could tell him what he might have. So I asked him a few additional questions.
He said, is there anything else in your past, your history, that could account for any kind of infection?
Tapeworms.
Could affect the spleen or other parts of your body?
And he told me in my office that day that I saw him in October 2006, no, that he did not recall any particular infections.
But that night, Bruce remembers a bizarre incident that happened more than 30 years earlier. He writes Nissenblatt a letter detailing the event.
Well, when I saw that letter, I was fairly certain that I knew what his diagnosis was going to be. While in Ethiopia, I adopted a feral dog.
And the dog then licked my hands and I touched my mouth, or the dog licked its fur and I rubbed the dog and then touched my mouth inadvertently and ingested tapeworm eggs.
Bruce believes that
As I said, he has tapeworms.
with tapeworms.
Also, during my first of 2 years in Ethiopia, I had burning discomfort in my upper left quadrant. Then I got the diagnosis of a calcified cyst of the spleen in 1970, when I returned home.
When I was first diagnosed with the cyst way back in 1970, we're talking 37 years ago, I was a little concerned, but then over the years, it sort of became like an old friend. You know, it's there, I've been told it's there, it's not doing anything. 3 different doctors have looked at x-ray, or 4 different doctors. Don't worry about it.
But for Nissenblatt, the cyst is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, when I saw that letter, it made it very clear to me that he had had an infection, and that infection probably got into his system and in all likelihood had somehow infected his spleen.
Evidently, those tapeworms eggs got trapped in my spleen, and then they started to grow into a little tapeworm, and then a cyst, and then the cyst died and became calcified.
Now more than ever, Nissenblatt is convinced that the cyst, likely formed by the dead tapeworm eggs, is the root of Bruce's cold agglutinin disease. The only cure? Remove his spleen.
The doctor came in, the surgeon came in, he said, your spleen was huge, it was the size of a football. There was a cyst in the spleen, obviously, we've identified it. We don't know what it is yet.
To the spleen and find lymphoma.
Lymphoma is a cancer of the lymphatic system, a network of lymph nodes bound throughout the body. The lymph nodes filter, collect, and destroy bacteria, viruses, and parasites to protect the immune system. However, sometimes an untreated infection, like the one which produced the cyst in Bruce's spleen, can alter the immune system and cause it to produce abnormal antibodies, such as cold agglutinins, or cancerous immune cells, such as lymphomas. In Bruce's case, it did both.
There are many types of lymphomas. Lymphomas have been classified for clinical or practical consideration.
I went to the refrigerator and I took this ice pack out and I held it on the side of my face for about 10 minutes while I watched TV. And I took it away and I looked in the mirror and my skin was still pink. And I
That's
thought,
great.
my God, this has worked.
Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.